Things are a little different. The background's different. I'm gesturing with my arm as if the model is going to move. Things different. I'm apparently a VTuber now. But, you know, who cares about any of that stuff? I want to talk about Shin Ultraman, so let's talk about Shin Ultraman. Through some sort of January-ween miracle, I managed to see the theatrical showing, and, you know, whoa, look out! Hot take coming through! It was really good. And so I just wanted to say some stuff about it. You know, for like an hour. So, unlike Godzilla and Gamera, Ultraman has historically had a very shallow resonance outside of Japan. Apparently one episode of Ultra Q, the Namagon episode, was dubbed in English as a sort of pilot, but then it never got picked up. I think I'm remembering that right. Ultraman was, though, and aired dubbed in the US featuring Speed Racer himself, Peter Fernandez, as part of the dubbing cast. For that initial generation of 60s monster kids, Ultraman was absolutely up there as part of the primary text of tokusatsu outside of Japan. But that was it. Ultraman's time in the sun began and ended right about there. It wasn't the last time the franchise was seen outside of Japan, but it was definitely the last time anyone really cared. Ultra 7 got a parody dub on TNT in the 90s, and then Tiga got very nearly a parody dub in the early aughts, and there were occasional splashes of its existence here and there, but it really wasn't until, like, now, actually, when anyone outside of Japan ever actually gave a damn about this franchise. And that's only partly Tsuburuya's fault. It was absolutely their fault for not properly dubbing Ultra Q and Ultra 7 and bringing it to shine alongside the Twilight Zone and Star Trek, where it rightfully belongs. It was also their fault for not bringing Return, Ace, Taro, and Leo to run alongside other classic beloved 70s Japanese imports like Battle of the Planets. And of course, then we get into the whole decades-long legal battle with Chayo, and that's all on Chayo being a real piece of shit, but then Chayo's claim was only ever to the distribution rights for everything up until Leo. So again, we have no one to blame for Tsuburaya for everything post-Leo. And, you know, of course, like, we know. I mean, if you're watching this, then you're someone who knows Ultraman intimately enough to bother clicking on a video about Shin Ultraman when, with all of like 5 views, that will probably be an hour long. And it's not even particularly forbidden knowledge that Ultraman is part of the big 4 kaiju franchises for which everything else is derivative of. But for a lot of Westerners older than like 5 and younger than 60, the exact way we became aware of this fact may well have been through obtaining forbidden knowledge. And that was certainly the case with me. There were exactly 2 pieces of Ultraman media available when I was a kid, and my initial discovery of Ultraman came about because of Towards the Future being advertised on TV. I never managed to catch a single episode of the show back then simply because it came on way too early in the day, but I was chomping at the bit for it so badly that at one point, in a supreme example of magical thinking, I wrote, and you can't see it but I'm doing air quotes, would be cool if my little virtual doll would also do air quotes, but I guess technology has its limits. What in my mind was the word Ultraman on the label of one of my mom's VHS tapes, drawing the connection between the contents of the tapes and what was written on the label, and coming to the conclusion that if I simply wrote Ultraman on one, it would therefore be on the tape. To this day, a part of me still kind of thinks that the only reason it didn't work was because I was too young to know how to write, and if I had made legible letters, maybe. But what was accessible to me were the toys, of which there were 6. Ultraman himself, and then 5 of the monsters that appeared in the series. Bogan, Jirukadon, Barangus, Majaba, and Killazy. These were my first real licensed monster toys after the Imperial Godzilla and the Yamakatsu Godzilla and Mothra larva that I got from my uncle. One of my favorite Decemberweens, either the first or the second best, depending on how I'm feeling that day, was when I woke up to a whole Ultraman playset of plastic destructible buildings complete with Ultraman himself and one of the monsters. I eventually had the whole set. Bogan was my favorite. still is. And I still think it's kind of amazing that even though I hadn't seen a single episode of that show until I was in my 20s, that series is, for me, the definitive version of Ultraman and the thing that sparked my adoration of it. The first Ultraman that I actually saw came about because of that same crazy desire to actually see the show, which came from 2 tapes that we rented from a video store, probably Blockbuster, which were called The Adventures of Ultraman and Ultraman 2. Ironically, Ultraman 2 was the prequel to The Adventures of Ultraman. Not realizing at that point that Ultraman was a franchise, like Godzilla and Gamera, I was incredibly confused when instead of the contemporary live-action show with the monsters I was so familiar with, they were animated shows featuring extremely bland and forgettable monsters, which ultimately just confused me. These were, of course, compilation films made by combining multiple episodes of the 1979 to 1980 series The Ultraman, with Adventures being a stream of episodes based on some kind of interstellar war, with the bulk of it taken up by exposition, and only a single enemy monster appearing at the very end. Ultraman 2, meanwhile, was 4 Monster of the Week episodes towards the beginning of the series runs, all crammed together, which I remember at the time getting more out of, but ultimately neither of them really hit anywhere with me. Ironically, much later, after watching Adventures again, after digging up the VHS I had taped it onto before returning the rented copy, I came to appreciate it enormously for its extremely late 70s utopian space hippie vibes. The sequence where Anya, which is not her name in the original show, but it's in the dubbed Adventures of Ultraman, her name is Anya, so that's why I'm calling her that. The scene where Anya takes Scotty to merge with the Ultramind and her subsequent soliloquy, which goes in the span of a few minutes from a sort of Heaven's Gate spirituality into a detached, unhinged, cosmic doomsaying Sybil-esque rant, has been an enormous influence on me personally, and has come out in several things I've written since, none of which are available anywhere for you to read.
Mentor is immortal, born with the first spray of star stuff in the infant universe, pure intellect in human form. Rock is the evil twin, living only by conquest like a vampire. He steals life from others to ensure his own immortality. His power grows stronger and stronger, and yet it's only the power of the Ultramind and the Ultra
The Rock
people.
is the source of all evil.
Yes!
Yes.
I still find Towards the Future was more enjoyable as a series since I've seen it, but together these 2 shows are representative of my Ultraman. And I suppose you can say, by virtue of my personal vision of Ultraman as a conflation of a late 70s cartoon about the intergalactic war of the space hippies, and a early 90s Australian show, Aboot Pollution, that goes a long way in explaining why, for the most part, I couldn't give a damn about the rest of the franchise. Maybe that's not fair, because I do like a lot about Ultraman. But I can't honestly say that the damage hasn't been done. Godzilla is my everything. And Gamera is that silly little turtle series for kids that robots make fun of and is funny because it's like the shitty version of Godzilla, which then took a wild turn in establishing itself as something worthy of standing alongside Godzilla in the late 90s. Evangelion took work to sit through. It's self-indulgent beyond its own detriment. But once you're in it, you get it. As Godzilla is for relationships between countries, Evangelion is for the relationships between people. Ultraman? That show where he punches a different monster every week for every year since 1966? That means nothing to me. It's just a kid's show I could never watch because no one ever bothered distributing it to me. And I'm not bitter about that anymore, but I was bitter for a long, long time. And the fact that the body of the franchise is comprised of something like 30 year-long series with 50 episodes each, working out to something like 1,500 episodes? I'm not going to say that the current state of Ultraman's distribution outside of Japan is too little, but it is absolutely too late. Ultraman had every possible chance to hook me. Hell, I came pre-hooked. I wanted it so badly that I tried to use a magic spell to ninja it onto a videotape like Baby Sadako, and I still never saw that one show until I came across illegal uploads online. I'm not an Ultra fan. I long, long ago ran out of patience for its bullshit distribution methods. Of course, I have over time slowly caught up with the franchise, albeit at the pace expected of someone who has something of a grudge against it. And, it's fine. I've seen all of Q and Man, and they're cool. I've seen a few episodes of all the Show era series. Quite a few of them I've enjoyed unironically. What I've seen of Tiga is alright, and those late aughts movies, Ultra Galaxy Legend and Ultraman Zero, are just absolutely bonkers, but, in a fun way. I have very little to say about the 70s shows. They're all pretty much the same. All extremely janky and uneven. Ultraman 80 is sincerely good. I relate to the human host a lot, and the show actually has a plot, which, for an Ultraman series, is extremely novel. Cosmos actually has an Ultraman be a good guy for once, and not just kill everything because it isn't him, and with him going out of his way to pacify and even protect the monsters in the series. The series from the 2010s also all kind of blend together for me, but each one of them seems to have its own cute little gimmick, and they're entertaining at least. And then of course there's the new series, which air right on Subaraya's YouTube channel, and I haven't kept up with them, but I've seen a fair amount of Z and Trigger, and again, they're fun, and sometimes surprisingly good. So all things considered, I'm into it. It's fine. But Shin Ultraman isn't any of those other shows. The advertising is pretty clear about what this is. It is an attempt to do for Ultraman what Shin Godzilla did for Godzilla. So what does that mean? Well, Shin Godzilla was a fresh reboot. It's a kind of distillation of the essence of Godzilla, but recontextualized as if it's happening right now for the first time. This sets it apart from something like a dark and gritty style reboot, because the aim isn't to skew the material in a new direction, it's to refocus it on the core of what that material was in the first place. The original Godzilla was a movie about a national tragedy perpetrated by the negligence of humans as viewed through the lens of a monster attack. Shin Godzilla is exactly the same thing, except it's 311 in the failures of bureaucracy to respond to the resulting damage and the Fukushima meltdown rather than the Lucky Dragon No. 5 incident. And besides that, Ultraman has already had dark and gritty reboots multiple times now. Ultraman is also in a different position from Godzilla. Shin Godzilla was a full rebirth. He was dead for 12 years, the longest gap between films in history, and with the god-awful Hollywood movie actually somehow being successful, the stage was fairly well set for Godzilla to just completely die out altogether. At the time, that's what I thought was going to happen. Seeing Godzilla again, at all, was important. It meant something. But Ultraman is in the middle of its aforementioned worldwide media blitz. Long-suffering Turku nerds like me are finally getting access to the extensive backlog of the series, and children outside of Japan are finally experiencing the series in the way they were supposed to for the first time. Ultraman doesn't need a reboot. He's just fine. Thriving, in fact. Rather, the place that Shin Ultraman has in the product line is basically a commercial for the series as a whole to the rest of the world. For one, it's a sequel to Shin Godzilla, so it's working off the hype from that film and the reputation of Hideaki Anno and Evangelon. So, in this way, it's the culmination of Ultraman, Godzilla, and Evangelon, all rolled up together in one nice, extremely commercially and critically viable piece of advertising. More people will become aware of Ultraman's existence because of this one film than ever would have before. And for many of them, that journey will begin and end at Shin Ultraman, but at the very least, they'll have understood what Ultraman, at its core, actually is. Which, of course, is why it's important that, again, Shin Ultraman be not dark and gritty, but pure, distilled Ultraman. Real top-shelf stuff. And it has to be presented in a way that doesn't feel as disjointed as a 52-episode television series with drastic dips in quality from story to story. Which of course it succeeds in, but that was never really in doubt, was it? More to the point, while it's not going to it's not going to affect the current release schedule of the yearly procession of kids shows, we can already see that Ultraman as a brand is branching out. The Netflix cartoon got a second season. There's an animated films in the works there too, and the fallout from this film is very likely to create more such branches of the franchise as Shin Ultraman draws eyes towards it that weren't there to begin with. So my point is, Shin Ultraman isn't reviving a dead monster, it's selling a living one to people who didn't know they existed to begin with. Surprise! So, the tone, pacing, characterization, world building, generally all of the actual skeleton of the film is undeniably copied wholesale from Shin Godzilla. I said earlier that it's a sequel, and while I meant that more in a spiritual successor kind of way, it potentially literally is a sequel as well. The film opens the same as the opening of the original series, with a color Ultra Q logo spiraling as if you got rickrolled into watching a different show, before the Ultraman logo explodes onto the screen. The difference being that Shin Ultraman isn't preceded by Shin Ultra Q, it's preceded by Shin Godzilla. This is followed by an opening sequence that begins with the first monster from Ultra Q, Gomez, who, of course, was made from a repurposed Godzilla suit, appears as the first S-Class species, this time as a repurposed CGI Godzilla model. Then it follows a number of Ultra Q kaiju appearing in sequence, 6 of them in all, which serves as both fan service and a way to establish world building around the SSSP. The numbering system is clear, it starts from Gomez, and Gabara is the 8th S-Class kaiju to appear. There's no reference anywhere in the film to Godzilla, so it doesn't really seem like those events took place before the film, but then again, weirder things have happened in the continuity of both these franchises, and the authorial intent is palpable. So it's possible Godzilla is number 0, or doesn't count as an S-Class kaiju for whatever reason, I don't know. The only strong connection is that Yutaka Takenouchi again plays a government official, whose character is not given a name. So that fact, as well as his introduction in the film, the way that it's staged and acted, sure makes it look like they want the audience to think he's Akasaka from Shin Godzilla. Anyways, my point is, functionally, this film feels like 2 more hours of Shin Godzilla in substance, just with different monsters. In a lot of ways, it kind of felt like I was experiencing Shin Godzilla again for the first time. One particular moment, after the battle with Naranga, they played a music cue from Shin Godzilla, the same one that plays in the aftermath of Godzilla's first landfall. In that film, the way it's paced, the movie shoves you right into the deep end, in the middle of the chaos surrounding Godzilla's appearance and the struggle to comprehend what they're dealing with. The piling frustration with the inability of the government to take any effective action sharply escalates, as does the emotional impact of the film, both from the perspective of seeing Godzilla for the first time in 12 years, as well as the extreme visceral visual connections to the 311 tsunami, as Godzilla finally makes landfall, and he's really not okay. For the first time, the audience can see Godzilla as an actual victim of his exposure to radioactive material. The government is completely impotent, and we, as the audience, know that something is very wrong with him. This means that the incompetence on display hits even harder, because we know that this isn't even really a full-on Godzilla yet. He's still in the process of mutating, and things are going to get so much worse. Ultimately, the situation diffuses itself as Godzilla overheats and retreats into the sea, leading to the first tension release of the film, where the audience, which includes me, finally has room to breathe and process the fact that, even though he's been gone for 12 years, Godzilla's fangs are still as sharp as ever. The piece, Early Morning from Tokyo, plays as the chatter of morning news plays over the first day since mankind discovered that they weren't the only monsters. In Shin Ultraman, the same simple, inoffensive, smooth jazz music plays as the newest member of the SSSP makes her way to the office in the immediate aftermath of the paradigm shift that came about as the mysterious silver giant did their job for them and destroyed Naranga with a single blast. And I couldn't help it. I cried. I mean, as a bit of filmmaking, it's very effective, but this is the only cue reused from composer Shiro Sugiusu's repertoire. There's not even any Evangeline music, and it's used incredibly well. But more importantly, this movie made me feel the same way about Ultraman that I did when seeing my monster again for the first time in 12 years, after I truly believed he was dead forever. And I just couldn't help but cry. It was that overwhelming. The procedural focus is again the catalyst for the actual conflict in the film. Only this time it isn't entirely the fault of humans, because the government is being actively manipulated by the aliens who appear in the second half of the film. Actually, it's more like the last 3/4 of it. And in this way, Shin Ultraman presses itself right up against the wall of just straight up becoming a Godzilla film. And it's not because of the aliens, but the humans. See, Mephilos' plan involves this thing called a beta box. It's based on the same technology as the beta capsule, but it works on anything. This serves as both a way to shoehorn in a very nerdy reference to Mephilos' debut episode, where he causes the SSSP member Fuji to become a giant, and a negotiating point with the Earthlings. At this point, Zareb has established that there are hostile aliens, therefore, just as Ultraman has been a successful ally, it would stand to reason that Earthlings having the power for themselves would be the most reasonable and effective countermeasure against any possible alien threats. Mephilos, of course, not being one of those threats. Please believe me. If you've lived and breathed Godzilla as hard as me, then you'll immediately know why this is just the absolute worst idea, which is, of course, mutually assured destruction. Making humans into Ultraman doesn't carry with it the stigma of destroying the planet, making it a viable weapon for practical use. And humans fight each other over anything and everything, sometimes for no reason at all. And Mephilos is specifically offering this technology not to Earth, but to Japan. Meaning, you don't even have to wait until a war starts for some other reason. Japan will already be forced to defend itself from outside forces trying to steal the technology, which would lead to a coalition. And if Ultramen are on the table, why not certain other superweapons? But of course, this isn't a Godzilla movie. It's an Ultraman movie. An Ultraman is about hope and teaching kids to do their homework or whatever, not about how civilization was a mistake. So, while it's apparent that this would be a problem should the sequence of events were to go down, at least to me, that's not the stated issue in the film itself. Here, the idea is that humans don't fully realize exactly how populated and contentious the universe is. They aren't plugged into the intergalactic politics in the way that Ultraman and Mephilos are. And they don't realize that if they were to have this power, that would then make themselves into weapons not only on their planet, but on others as well, rousing a lot of interest in Earth among various aliens. And if people go to war over resources, you can imagine how petty aliens are who, when their primary goal is for people to think that they're better than everyone else. Shin Ultraman's core conflict that drives the narrative is the agency of humans, which is similar to Shin Godzilla, but unlike that film where the solution is just kind of sneaks in when the plot needs it to, which is, as a result, completely clouds the mirror to society that up until that point had been painted with Omorian precision, Shin Ultraman does not take place in a crapsack world of a Heisei-era Godzilla movie. They establish from the outset, with the death of Gomez at the hands of the JSDF using conventional weaponry, that hope exists. And any of the 311S difficulties Japan may have had getting to that point are hand-waved in the narrative of the film. Instead, jumping right to the monster's appearance, to the situation's resolution, and then immediately to the next monster. 6 kaiju, Gomez, Duran, Pagila, Larugius, Kaigel, and Pagos, are all dealt with the same level of ingenuity seen in Shin Godzilla or their respective Ultra Q episodes when there was no hero to save the day. The next 2 kaiju, Naranga and Gabara, are solved by Ultraman. And this, although for those 2 episodes Ultraman presents a facade of hope, as the film progresses, we come to view this as the initial incident in the broader conflict regarding agency. So instead of starting with the 311 and heading towards a plucky group of free thinkers were able to solve it and us, it starts with showing us that people are capable of solving problems without dwelling on the interdepartmental drama that may or may not have happened, so that when issues in the system do appear, they flesh out the thesis of the film rather than undermine it. In this way, Shin Ultraman is actually a better and more competently written film than Shin Godzilla, although it should be noted that this criticism only works if you, like me, recognize the Godzilla series as one where humans are consistently unreliable, and that, in real life, 311 did not have a happy, simple solution that a room full of nerds cooked up and implemented on their own with no oversight. There is also a greater emphasis on fan service here than in Shin Godzilla. A lot of the music, most of it actually, is straight from the original series, as well as the opening credits theme to Ultra Q. The sound effects don't include the pom-pom guns, and you won't find as many radical reinventions or reinterpretations here. There are exceptions, but there's a lot here that's ripped straight from the original, and stuff plays out much like it used to. Ultraman's design is based on the same original concept art by Toru Narita. His motion capture actor is legitimately actually Ben Furuya, the same dude who played him in 1966, and he's 79 now. Even Godzilla himself, Haruo Nakajima, one of the toughest motherfuckers to ever live, wasn't physically portraying monsters in his 70s. Not only that, but they got the dude who was drawing the rays in the 60s back too, to draw Ultraman Spacium Ray again. That's an incredible and frankly unnecessary level of devotion to the foundational work. Definitely appreciated, but it's so far above and beyond that it's just flabbergasting. Although a single film and not a series of episodes, the pacing of the film actually does break down into roughly 5 distinct episodes, each with its own monster antagonist. And these episodes themselves feel a lot like episodes of Ultraman, but with a slight tonal skew towards Shin Godzilla. We see the SSSP members in their downtime, they respond to an immediate crisis, analyze the situation, and formulate a plan, with Ultraman coming in at the end to ultimately resolve the conflict. The characters don't have broad personalities like Ide or Arashi. They're more believable as people, but they're all distinct characters. Just as in the original series, you again have veteran Godzilla actors coming in to play authority figures outside of the SSP. In this case, Takanouchi and the Kado Yasunori, Kyosaku Shimida, both from Shin Godzilla. The movie doesn't feel like 5 episodes, but it's able to maintain a degree of lightheartedness that, while not with the same intensity of the original series, is different enough from Shin Godzilla to make it feel like this is distinctly Ultraman. There's also an interesting similarity, brought on by the central conflict of the film, re-agency, between the level of effectiveness of the SSSP in both the film and the original series. They're definitely competent, and when the episode or film needs them to step up to the challenge to make a point, they're more than capable of doing so, but it's clear that there are definite limits to their abilities. The last 3 episodes, as it were, handle this balance really well in a way that directly matches the original series. There's even the requisite Ultraman loses the beta capsule and needs a civilian to help get it back B-plot during the episode with Zerub. In the course of handling all these different incidents together as an interwoven single narrative piece, Shin Ultraman is able to greater focus on the connective tissue and overall plot momentum in a way the episodic nature of the overwhelming majority of Ultraman shows can't touch. There are 2 major differences which I personally really appreciate, not just because they're things I've always wanted to see Ultraman do, but also because they do a great job at achieving this difference between a single film and several episodes. The first is the aliens. While we don't think of Ultraman, or even Ultra 7, in the same breath as something like Star Trek usually, the connective tissue is absolutely there. 2 defining landmarks of 1960s sci-fi television, both dealing with a new alien every week. Both are episodic, with individual episodes being essentially little bite-sized sci-fi short stories. But Star Trek banked on its recurring aliens alongside its world building of the future of human space travel to create a politically complex world as the franchise evolved. The Ultra series, meanwhile, has a significantly more expansive universe, exponentially so, but its disparate pieces almost never come together in any sort of meaningful way, because aliens and space monsters are only one part of its makeup. Any given episode of Ultraman could feature anything from a returning classic character, either in a straight sequel or a simple callback, to an alien threat with a wide range of degrees of intensity, to some isolated incident involving a monster that, I don't know, eats pearls or something, and then is never seen or referenced again for 60 years. It has been done before, more than once. The Netflix cartoon is a great and easily accessible example of the vast array of alien life in the Ultraman Multiverse being used as a story hook for complicated political interactions. Coming between Ultras Q and 7, Ultraman is the middle ground of the series that ranges from the Toho-style monster attacks and 60s sci-fi alien invasions. To properly present this dichotomy in Shin Ultraman, the film is split between the period spent dealing with the appearance of the S-Class species and the contact with the alien life forms. Ultraman is First Contact, which starts off a new numbering scheme as Alien Number 1, followed by Alien Number 2, Zerub. The two enemy aliens don't directly interact, but these two, as well as Zafi, whose name is spelled differently from the classic character because of a typo in an old 60s monster book, which is the nerdiest thing I have ever heard, are well aware of each other and their motivations and plans interact with each other as the plot unfolds. We still get the sense of this episode of Ultraman, he fights Mephiles, but with the bonus mythology nod that Mephiles only leaves because he knows Zafi is there, and what that might mean the intentions of the Ultraman are, so he no longer wants to be involved with the affairs of the planet. It's extremely cool and interesting, especially for someone with as scattered and fragmentary an understanding of the series as a whole as me, and presumably most other Western fans, to see this look at the world of the film and how all the pieces are connecting. It's significantly more rewarding than isolated episodes. The other big thing, quite frankly, blew me away, and I honestly don't know if it's ever been done in Ultraman anything before. They find out who Ultraman is, and not at the end. I mean, it's revealed during the Zerub section, likely by Zerub himself, during the heat of the fake Ultraman plot, and it never gets undone. The SSSP and the government discover the identity of Ultraman's host, and they just know who he is for the entire rest of the film. Seriously, there's no catch. You actually get to see the consequences of that, and it is such a breath of fresh air. I definitely said that right. And it's so interesting to see, finally, just this once, have Ultraman be an active participant in the process of defending people, rather than be an outside observer lurking in the shadows for no discernible reason. And what's great here is that once the information is revealed, you actually kind of hope they put it back in the box, because there are consequences. But the real double whammy is that the nature of this fusion is different from past Ultraman. The human host, Shinji Kaminaga, is just fully dead. There's no wiggle room here. Ultraman repeatedly returns to the spot in the forest where Kaminaga's dead body is to ruminate. He's dead as shit, and so you realize more than ever before that the only reason even a semblance of this person still exists is because of the compassion of Ultraman. This isn't a simple injury or a near miss here. Ultraman straight up saved this dude's life, and as is revealed during the discussion between Ultraman and Zafi at the end, if Ultraman separates from him, he'll just die. His Ultra Juice is the only thing keeping Kaminaga alive. But the result of this is that the entity calling itself Kaminaga is actually very little of the actual human Kaminaga. There is a merger here. Ultraman, who by the way is given a proper name for the first time, Lipia. Although I'm just going to keep calling him Ultraman here, because there's only two in this movie, and the other one is Zafi, so it's pretty clear who I'm talking about, has absorbed a lot of the humanity in the process, and becomes progressively more attached, emotional, and even irrational at times. But it's Ultraman doing the talking here, which means that not only do we have the bold choice to have Ultraman's identity be revealed, but the character actually is Ultraman, and can therefore give us scenes with Ultraman, like the Ultraman actually interacting directly with humans and his teammates in the SSSP on an equal footing as peers, which lets us appreciate Ultraman as an actual character and form ideas about his goals and motivations, and that's just special. And something we learn because of this, as well as the scenes with Zafi, is an idea that I've been stewing in since I first watched the original Ultraman series back when that first DVD set came out in the mid-aughts. The Ultramen are lawful neutral. They are not generally your friend. Ever since Ultraman's first meeting with the Baltans in episode 2, where he says bluntly that you have to abide by the rules of this planet you wish to inhabit, and to hell with you if you don't, even if you're refugees, and especially since Ultraman ruthlessly murdered Gavidon, a monster that's only been alive for like 2 days, the literal creation of the imagination of children, to the chorus of those same children desperately crying and screaming and pleading with Ultraman not to kill Gavidon, my opinion of Ultraman isn't terribly high. But of course the characterization of any single Ultraman isn't going to be consistent from episode to episode, let alone over so many decades the franchise has been going, let alone across all of the multitudes of different Ultras that have appeared over that time, that it isn't really fair to form any opinions on the species as a whole based on any of that. Cosmos, of course, would have found Lippia's treatment of Gavidon to be absolutely abhorrent. But as a meditation on the original series, the presence of this angle, that Ultramen are a kind of detached, basically peaceful but lawful to a fault species, works really well. They even have their own version of the Prime Directive. This gives the fusion of Ultraman and Kaminaga a weight to it that drives the movie forward as the melding of two minds begins to see the world in a new way that neither of them may have considered before. What I'm saying is that they gave Ultraman a character arc, and it's awesome. Oh no, I'm so tiny, how did I get so small? Oh no. Time to use my thing to do the thing that they do in the show. Wow, that wasn't that cool. Yeah. Cool special effects. Now I just need to put some buildings around here and just like do like this and go, and then I go this way and it just looks like I'm hopping because I'm a bunny. This is gonna look great in post when I put the buildings in. It won't look terrible at all, I promise. Please believe me. So that's how I feel about Shin Ultraman in my life. And, yeah, I guess that's it. So, I said everything I wanted to say about the movie. Next time, probably a thing about copyright. And then I gotta get to the Godzilla continuity stuff, and then there's the more Hell videos, but probably copyright next time. And, until then, robots, or weapons, biological weapons created by aliens, Henshin, and Shoewatch. You know what else is a really cool Ultraman movie? This fucking thing. So, if you don't know, this thing is a Thai-Japanese co-production where this guy in Thailand was like Thailand, like Thai is in Thailand, the country, not to be confused. It was like, I want to make an Ultraman movie or something. I'm not sure how it came about, but basically it was like, he did this thing, and then all of the licensing issues came about because of this movie. And so this version that I'm playing right now is the original Thai theatrical release. There was a much shorter version released, edited version released in Japan with Japanese dubbing, and it's completely bonkers. Like absolutely banana brains, wacko crazy. I've never actually seen this. When I watched it the first time, I didn't see it subtitled. Also, I was really high when I watched this the first time, and like it's insane when you're sober. So I mean, this movie is a fucking trip. Like, you can tell, I didn't even know they were saying, what do you mean 69 planets? Like, so I just thought, I want to talk about this a little bit for Secret Segment. So basically this movie is like, it kind of seems like the natural conclusion, or not, it wasn't a conclusion, but like, you know, it was from 1974, so at the time they were doing this thing ever since Ultraman Ace. They were like, okay, well now there's a new Ultraman, there's a series of Ultraman, okay, so there's the Ultra Brothers, that's what they were, there's the Ultra Brothers, and you're the what was Ace? Tara's the 6th, right? So that makes Leo the 7th, and it's like, these are the Ultra Brothers, so you have each of them have their own series. What do? Well, you get them all together, and then you have them fight a bunch of monsters all at once. Like, right? Like, that just makes sense. But they didn't do it in any sort of sensible way. Instead, they did it in this bonkers kind of way. So, you know, they're talking about right now in the subtitles, you can see it's not just the 6 Ultra Brothers, they also have Hanuman, you know, like the character from Journey to the West, I think. Am I getting that right? Or is Hanuman like a Vedic deity? I actually don't know. You know, I've never read Journey to the West. So, like, I guess I'm just like an uncultured pleb. But, so there's like 7 heroes or whatever, and so there's like crazy shit like this where it's like they're mixing in like I don't know if this is like Chinese or Vedic or Thai mythology where this is coming from, but it's crazy and like, so yeah, there's his rise. So it is basically that. It is basically that the 6 Ultra Brothers team up and fight a bunch of monsters all at once. Like, who's this lady? Yeah, see, there's Gamora. But it's also, this is like Super Gamora. So he's got like this. He does this crazy shit where he does like rainbow horns, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. And he's like the final boss, which is actually kind of smart, you know, because Gamora is cool and everything, but oh, his rainbow blots out the sun, of course, why wouldn't it? But like, the first whole act of this movie doesn't have anything to do with Ultraman at all. And he's like, is this like one of the monster attack teams? Yeah, so there's these 2 characters who are like, what the fuck are they doing? They're they're like the comic relief of the movie, and they're just obnoxious. They're definitely like Thai actors, so they're not part of whatever the attack team was in the Tara Ultraman show. I don't recognize. I can't tell the difference between the costumes for all the different attack teams. I don't know. If you had a gun to my head, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you which is from which series, but like, they definitely look like a 70s Ultraman attack team series. But yeah, like the full The whole first act of this movie takes place in these ruins. They look like South Asian actual ruins from some sort of civilization that used to be there. And like there's a subplot where these robbers come in to like kill. Okay, but they like steal artifacts or something. There's the comic relief assholes again. Oh, and there's this plant with missiles. None of it makes any sense. You know, if I rewatch this again, now that I have these subtitles, it might make a lot more sense to me, but, like, come on, get to the good shit. Where's the part where... Oh, and they spend... You may have noticed, they spend a hell of a lot of these like, fucking orphan kids. Like, they just live at these ruins, I guess, and they spend all of their days dancing around, I guess, is what the plot of the movie is for its first 20 or so minutes. No, it's more than 20. It's like, this is 20 minutes in, and the initial incident is just getting started. So, like, these kids go and try to prevent them. And the kid fucking dies. They straight up murder this kid. In an Ultraman movie. You know. 4 kids. Like, what the fuck is this? He's fucking dead. Why did they kill... And they, like, shoot him in the fucking head, too. Like, let's see if I can get there. He hitches a ride on the back of this truck, chasing after him after they try to get they steal the thing. Where is it? Show me the part. I guess it's here. I guess I have to be patient, which sucks. Yeah. So he hops on the back, like, right here, and then they're trying to get him off. Come on, show the part. All the kids who live in these ruins because they don't have parents. They don't have, like, clothes or shoes or anything. Like, what? Yeah, and then he just shoots him in the fucking head. What the hell? And so, like, I guess Ultraman, or Hanuman, does his fusion like Ultraman. Hanuman is just an Ultraman, I guess, in this movie for some reason. Like, he follows all the same rules. He fuses with this dead kid. And then... Yeah. The Ultras yeah, so I guess they explained that. I thought in the... I don't understand whatever the Thai language is, so I didn't really understand that's what they were doing. But is this the part where she... Yeah! Then she reaches her fucking hand through the sky like the goddamn presents. It's so sick. And, like... So, I don't want to, like, ruin... Like, you need to see this movie. And don't watch it sober. You gotta watch it, like, completely baked. Or, like, really drunk or something. It's better if you're baked. It's... Because it's such a trip, and if you aren't prepared for what's going to happen, you will legitimately not believe that what you're seeing is really happening for real in the actual movie. That happened to me, and that happened to me with, like, the boring shit, like this part, like the climax at the end where they're fighting all the monsters. What the fuck is he doing? Oh, okay, he just kills all of the monsters himself and the Ultramen don't get to do anything. Sure, that seems fair. But yeah, like this part where they're just fighting the monsters on this missile base, even that was like, what the fuck is going on? Because it's so surreal. Even the normal parts of this movie just, like, feel surreal. In like, a way that's even more... What do you mean destroy all monsters? That's a different movie. In a way that's, like, more unhinged than even the 70s Ultraman shows. I think one of these monsters is actually from Mirror Man, too. But yeah, so they kill this kid, and then he fuses with Hanuman, and then they all dance. They all keep dancing. They dance forever. That's all they do in this fucking movie is they dance around. And then... And they get revenge on the 2 guys who killed the kid before. And they do it in an equally gruesome fashion. Oh my god, that... What do you mean, Melissa? You can't take my name. Who's that kid? So I'll get into that part in a second. There's just so much weird shit. Look, he's dancing. Why is he there? Why is he dancing like that? This is so strange. I'm sorry, I'm just captivated by this. So, it's okay, so like, then this happens. He grows giant. He grows into like his giant Ultra Hanuman form, and he fucking hunts these people down in the ruins and like murders them. They get murdered. Just like they killed the kid, he kills them the fuck back. And it's like really gruesome. Like, look at that's terrifying. Can you imagine being like isolated from everything in like these ancient ruins with like this fucking Hindu god that's like 30 stories tall stalking you? What, are you gonna fucking fist fight a giant monkey god? What the fuck is wrong with you? This is so, like, everything about this, I don't, like, I can't. Yeah, is this where it happens? Squish. I think the other one gets stepped on. I wonder if I can find that. He just goes pop. Doesn't there like blood? Doesn't he like squeeze the juice out of him or some shit? It's been a while since I've seen this movie. It's been a few years, but man, some of this stuff has really stuck with me just because it's... What the fuck is that? I don't even remember. The relic floats? Why is it floating? Does he have telekinesis or is it like possessed? What the fuck? Like, what the what the fuck? Okay. Yeah, I guess like the head of the statue floats and goes back onto the body because it's like, but they had to kick the head off, right? Here's what I'm wondering. Okay, so these are like definitely actual ruins, right? Was that an actual statue that they had to vandalize in order to do that? Or did they build that and then take the head off? And then, like, shoot it in reverse order so they didn't actually destroy the statue? Or, so, I really, because, like, based on the shit that these people, this company has done after this movie came out, like, I wouldn't put it past them to just straight up be like, yo, wait, is it the other kid? It's not the kid that they shot that came... I forgot. Anyways, but like... so there's all this. And then you remember how in Godzilla vs. Kong, the movie begins with King Kong trying to kill the sun? So... is that this part? Yeah, that's this part. Wow, speak of the devil. Yeah, so there's this whole extended sequence in this movie where Hanuman fucking fights the sun. Like, has an argument with the sun. Here, you'll see in a second. What did he have to spin around to do that? What the fuck is going on? Why is he flying like that? But yeah, so check this out. So he goes up into space, and then the sun... I don't want to, like, spoil it. Yeah, like the sun's like a person. He's like an actual like Thai or Hindu sun god or something. Like he's just a guy. Like he's just some sort of like anthropomorphized god and he like literally carries the sun around in a fucking cart. I'm sorry, I'm just fat. Like I didn't see this with subtitles, so when I saw this the first time, it was just complete rambling nonsense, but like, you know, sun's too hot seems like a reasonable... issue to take up with the sun. Seems like it would be within their purview. Definitely don't get further away from the Earth, though. That would cause all kinds of fucking problems. But I guess like astronomy is doesn't quite work the same. And then there's this whole extended sequence with this space flower that he has to go get, which is like, I guess that's back here, isn't it? That's where the kid dies. Yeah, here it is. So he's trying to get this flower in like space or something. I don't really know what's going on. And then it like teleports and it's all this shit, and like it's like a flower spirit or something, and she's like playing hard to get with him. And this isn't an insignificant part of the movie either. Reminder, this is like supposed to be an Ultraman movie. And this is now 36 and a half minutes into the movie, and it's like Hanuman, like the monkey god, is chasing after a personified flower spirit that's playing hard to get. And this is the content of an actual Ultraman, like a licensed Ultraman movie. I mean, now, of course, they've disowned this. Not just because, I imagine, not just because of the legal shit that Chayo gave them, you know, later on, but like, you know, because of everything else as well. And it's just like, you see the Ultraman in the beginning, but they're not like a part of this movie up until the very end, like the climax where they actually fight the monsters. Like, most of the movie is just this kind of shit. Like, kids dying, like motherfuckers getting like scrubbed out, and space gods and all kinds of weird shit. And he's still fucking why is he dancing like that? Because he's like a monkey? Is that like how monkeys dance, I guess? It's so weird. So fucking weird. So, yeah, and there's yeah, this is what I was talking about when I was saying, like, even the normal parts are surreal to me. Like, something about this doesn't feel real. It feels like a movie I would have dreamed of when I was little. Like, wouldn't it be fucked up if a movie like this existed, where there was just, like, a whole bunch of monsters destroying, like, a rocket ship base in the fucking middle of the jungle? Yeah, so anyway, so that's this movie. That's... I just wanted to talk about this for a bit, because this is just such perfect secret segment material, you know? Like, maybe... Because, you know, like, Tsuburaya wants nothing to do with this movie anymore. And this isn't even the Japanese version. This is the original Thai version. So, you know, I guess I could just, like, stream this movie, or even just, like, upload it. But, like, with me, like, I could do, like... Whoa! Oh, the order is wrong. I know. I need to do this. Yeah, here we go. So I could do, like, that, and then... Yo, check it out. It's like MST3K, but, like, with no robots and not as funny. Way weirder. Yeah, reference to something from the, oh boy, that actor looks like a different actor. That monster looks like a puppy. Other stuff, I don't know. So this is why I don't riff movies, but oh, wrong button. Dun dun dun, I see you. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what I'm going to do next. But, you know, I also don't know. I have the sign off. I've decided to do variations on Autobots Transform and Rollout. And then I know that I'm doing secret segments in my videos now. I don't know how to end the secret segments. So now that secret segments exist, there exists the need for 2 distinct sign-offs, and I don't know what to do at the end of a secret segment. So I'm just kind of like, fucking bye, I guess. Bye.